Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's Eliah Ben Yaakov. Welcome to Hebrew Torah channel. We're here to do something a little different. We're going to actually do a word study today because, like I say, I believe that a lot of our salvation lies within the original language of the Yavarim or the Ivrim, whichever one we choose to call it, the Hebrew. And we got to go back to that. But there is a depthness, there is a beauty that lies inside of the language that cannot necessarily be seen in the English. And so we do not translate according to doctrine, meaning that, I don't have a purpose. I don't want any tithe money from anyone. I don't want anybody to necessarily have to just like me. I just rather you share with me information and let's grow together. And that's what I choose to do, is to share with you information, share with you instruction and direction that I believe that Ava Yahuwah or Yahweh or Yahweh, which would be the most paleo pronunciation, has shared with me through Ruach, and also understanding the relationship that Hanavi, Yeshua ben Yusuf, and others were showing us in their examples of how to come close to the Most High, and is to develop a relationship and to listen for His instruction. Everything that the Patriarchs would have done were according to the instruction of the Most High Yah. Whether it was given through Elohim, His mighty powers, or His mighty rulers, or whether it was through Him Himself speaking to someone through Dvar Yahuwah, or it could have basically been through dream, but it was always through instruction. All things are done through instruction. And in English, they call this word instruction law. And a lot of times in the English, even in the Old Testament of the English translation, where this word Torah was actually used, it was translated as law. Now, what I'm going to do today is share with you the actual meaning of Torah. And for the fact that the Avarim comes from a root stem kind of a system, the root words have a meaning in themselves. That is a verb that's going to describe an action, which will describe the word in all of its other forms. What we're going to start with is Torah, because the instruction of Yahuwah is the most important thing. So when Christianity starts to teach you that you are not under the law, is because of a not having an understanding of actually what Paulos could have meant. Because what we have to still realize is that even though we call Paul Greek, because he knew how to speak in Greek, one thing that I must have to admit is just like me speaking English. Because the USA has taken over this continental area that we have been born in this modern time. We all went to school here before we had any knowledge of that we were Hebrew, unless your parents were. You grew up speaking English. That's all that we knew. So with that being said, there was a lot of people in those days who were in the Roman areas who would have been dark-skinned or whatever they would have been. They would have actually been Ivrim people. But they would have spoke Greek because they probably grew up around it. One of their parents probably had married a Grecian lady. One of their parents were probably just trying their best to become just like Negroes of America today. We try to become the best of in America. We go to school, we go to college, we get the education, we buy the house. We want to have the American dream to put in a white man's face that, hey, I got it also. So you had people like that in those days who forsake their heritage. They began to speak in the languages of the people. But then you had a group of people who were living in the land of Judah, who had been brought back to the land of Judah, and they tried to hold on to their heritage. Some of them were strangers who became the Khazarian people today. Yeah, they were taught by somebody. The Khazarians didn't just adapt the language. They adapt the religion. They were taught. During the diaspora, of course, they converted. But we got to understand that in English also, with that conversion, it came their understanding of how to translate it. So 95% of Christianity today, we are listening to the Bible, understanding who Hanavi Yeshua bin Yusuf was through Greek philosophy, through Greek mythology. You're not seeing it from the concrete understanding of how the Avarim Amu would actually have done. And when I say Avarim Amu, I mean his people, the Hebrew. His people from the east. Who is his? Yahuwah. Now, we're going to go into Torah. And we're going to understand what Torah is. And I'm going to start by breaking down Torah, because you got to get the Greek understanding out of your mind. So when you go back into the New Testament, listen, if we don't understand the understanding that Hebrews had, then it would be hard to break free from understanding the New Testament and seeing it in the proper light that it was to be written in. I tell people I don't believe Christ is God, because I don't. I believe he was an El. He was a mighty power, a mighty ruler, a mighty shepherd. Yes, Yahusha was a mighty shepherd. But he was not Elohim Yahuwah. Not at all. An offspring of him. Zerah. Just like we all are all an offspring of Adam. Zerah Adam is what we are. The offspring of Adam. So was Yeshua. Just like the other Nevi'im. They were Zerah Yahuwah. They were offsprings of Yahuwah's character. Of he that be. Now, I'm going to say excuse me if I sneeze or something, because my nose is kind of running in. That's why I haven't been doing too many videos lately. Alright, but Torah comes from a root word, Yarah. Yarah actually means to throw. It means to shoot, like projecting, propelling, like arrows, to shoot an arrow, to throw water from the sky and indicate rain, to be shot through. Yarah is what that means, to be shot through. So we understand that they also use this word Yarah for the early rain. Yoreh. Yoreh meant the early rain. And when they say Yoreh, we knew that we were speaking of the water being thrown from the sky. Why do we understand that water is being thrown? Why does the root of this word mean to throw? Well, for one, the first letter, Yad. The first letter, Yad, is the picture of a hand in the Paleo. Now, excuse me on the video, because I do not have a Paleo Hebrew font on my computer. The letter Yad was the picture of an arm, a forearm, and a hand. And it can literally mean a hand, of course. But understand that the Hebraic language was a language of thinking, so therefore you would have to get an understanding from the picture. The picture itself would have a root meaning, but depending on the context, are you to take it in the root meaning, or are you to take it in the figurative meaning? It has to be determined by your understanding. To throw or to shoot, to project, to propel is what this means. So the root of direction, the root of instruction is propelling, is shooting something, pushing something forward, is the fundamental point of what direction is, of course. Because to say I'm going in a direction, you would throw something in a direction. Now in Hebrew, there are different forms. That is its basic in its root form. Okay? Now before I go into what form Torah is, let's go a little bit deeper into what we're speaking on right now with this word Yarah. Yarah, the first letter being Yod, as we said, being a hand, figuratively can indicate many different things. What can all be done with the hand? For one, yes, you can throw, you can pull, you can hold. When you hold something, you possess it. You control it. Okay? You can actually lift something with the hand. The hand indicates your strength. The hand indicates your power. That is the basis of this understanding of what instruction is. Instruction has to be taken hold of. That's why we have the hand in the first letter. Instruction has to be tossed. It has to be passed on, just as well as it has to be received by the hand. Instruction has to be done. Work with the hand. You have to work instruction. For what? In order to see its fruits. Because when you get a instruction package in your new toy or television or remote control or whatever you buy, the instructions, when you do them, it functions correctly. Understand the next letter is Rash, which in the ancients would be the picture of a head. Of course, literally it means the head of a man or the head of an animal. But figuratively speaking, it comes from a root word ra'ah, which actually means to see, which means to perceive, which means to understand, to comprehend. Which are all things that you do inside of what? Rash, your head. Understand that in your head, you perceive and you understand things. You take in instruction in your head. Once you have possessed it, once you're doing it, and also coinciding with it, simultaneously as you're doing, working, controlling, possessing instruction and direction, you're perceiving, you're comprehending, understanding, pondering on, figuring out instruction. The Rosh in the head. It also means chief, or choiced. The best instruction you're receiving is what we're about to say. Now the last letter is the Ha, or the He, which in the ancient would be the picture of a man with his arms out. And it means to behold, lo, look at this, to be in awe. Not only are you to grab it, possess it, hold it, control it, put it in your head, perceive it, understand it, comprehend it, choose the best of it. You are to be in awe at it because it is awesome. Because it is worthy of the most praise. Because it is worthy of the most instruction. So when we break down the Yarah, we understand that it can mean to throw depending on the context and how you use it. We look in our sister languages, meaning the other Shemitic groups. When you go into the Aramaic, it means to teach, ori. In the Ethiopic Yasit, or the Amharic, it means ware, information or news. In the Assyrian, it means ardu, to lead or to guide. So the understanding of this word Yarah means to guide, to direct, to control it, to handle it, to do it, to put it in your mind, to perceive it, and to take it in awe, to be amazed at it as if it's the most greatest thing. Instruction. And we know that instruction comes from Abba Yahuwah. No matter how it comes, we are to find the choicest parts. Even if you've seen a book that was Buddhist, if you've seen a book that's the Quran, if you've seen a book that's about physicology or mental conceptions, read it, man. But have your solid rock in what? Yarah, in instruction. That's what you focus it on. Now, there's another word before we get into Torah I'm going to mention to you, and it's the Hifal form. Actually, it's the Hofal form. But Hifal, what that means is that it's a causative word or affective, and it has many different, 6 to 7 different ways to find a Hifal, but normally it adds a Ha to the beginning and a Wav. Okay, for the fact that a Yod is a weak letter, it can be dropped. So when we see Ha, Wa, and then you see the Ra, it's still from the root word Yarah. But in the Hifil, now what it is meaning is that to cause to be thrown, or something that is to cause to be shot. So that's where I get the concept of teaching. Because to throw something, you be like, well, it mean to throw. It don't mean to teach. But when I go into the Hifil form, which could be like Yore or Horetika, You know, Horetika is a form that you would see it in. Yorem is the form that you would see it in the Hofil. Torka would be a form that you would see. Yaru would be a form. Ore is another form that you would see. Now, what we're saying is that it is being caused to be thrown. And that is the figurative speaking of what instruction is. And that's why this word became instruction or direction, because it's what it meant to be directed. But in order to go in a direction, you have to show somebody how. So it just means to direct, to teach, to instruct, and to direct means the same thing. Me and many of us other people on the internet, we are amore, which means teachers. So we teach that. We cause it to be taught. Okay? Torah, adding the ta to it, just like we added the mem to more, Torah indicates you or it. It is your instruction. It is your direction. It's what Torah is. It's your direction. It's your instruction given from Ava Yahuwah. Is that something that we want to deny? Is that something that we do not want? It's instruction. You think that has been canceled out? Do you think that's what we're not under? So we're not under the instruction no more? We're not under the guidance no more? And after we understood and broke down what this word instruction means and what the root of it, Yarah, then we understand what Torah is. Now, when was it translated as law? When does it mean law? It never means law. It always means instruction. The only reason that it has been translated as law is because there are times in the Hebrew that you would use two heads, two ha's in front of a certain phrase in order to add emphasis. So, for instance, if you were to say ha Torah ha azot, ha ozot, now what you're saying is this instruction. This is instruction. Like in English, it's the law. This is the law. When they say buckle your seatbelts, it's the law. It's still saying it's an instruction, because the instruction that was given before it saying it's the law was actually, buckle your seatbelt. But when it says it's the law, it's just like saying, Torah, to do your seatbelt. But then you come back around and say, ha Torah, hazot. Now what you're saying is this is the instruction. It brings emphasis to it. So that's when it would be considered as law. So those are the things that Paulus was saying, because those times it was only used when describing the duties that the priesthood was supposed to do. For the fact that the priesthood, the Kohen, had, strayed away from their actual purpose and what they were supposed to be doing, Yeshua was actually trying to teach us how to come back to Torah and understand who Ava Yahuwah was personally, and with those who truly want to know him. You don't need a church, man. You don't have to go to church. You just need to communicate with your people. You need to study your scriptures and pray for yourself. This is instruction, because why? Yahuwah will give you Torah because it is your instruction. He's going to give it to you. That's what it was given for, to be your instruction, to be your direction, and knowing how to come to him. Those things that were set in stone to be law, okay, the HaTorah Hazot is mostly like, the Deuteronomic codes of just like, hey, this is going to happen if you don't. This is an instruction that's going to be serious. These are the serious instructions. So why would you not be under the most serious instructions? But yet again, if it's concerning the priesthood, there are certain things that can't be done until the third temple is built. Until the day of Yahuwah. And that's when the third temple will be built, is in the day of Yahuwah. So once we understand that, then we know how to carry ourselves. So law has not been destroyed. Law never would be destroyed. Shabbat Shalom. I hope you really enjoyed it. We're about to go into something different, though. We're also going to go into another word that comes along with Torah. Because with instruction, comes wisdom.